Unrelated subject, and it relates to yesterday's activities. You can relax a moment, Your Honor. This will not be a question for you. But a lot was said in this room yesterday about dark money by our Republican friends, to the point where one of the headlines about yesterday read, "Republicans hammer dark money groups." And I'll be the first to concede that there is dark money on both sides, and I hope very much we can get rid of it on both sides shortly by legislation. But there is a difference, I believe, between a dark money interest rooting for someone and right-wing dark money interests having a role in actually picking the last 3 Supreme Court justices. Now, how do we know that they had a role in doing that? Well, we know because everybody involved said so. It was pretty straightforward stuff. President Trump said we're going to have great judges, conservative, all picked by the Federalist Society. That's pretty plain. Senator Orrin Hatch, former chairman, was asked, some have accused President Trump of outsourcing his judicial selection process to the Federalist Society. I say, damn right. The co-founder of the Federalist Society said that the administration is relying on the Federalist Society to come up with qualified nominees. And then Don McGahn, who ran the operation for Trump in the White House, said, "I've been a member of the Federalist Society since law school, still am, so frankly, it seems like that role has been insourced." So there's pretty clear and pretty broad agreement that that selection process took place out of the public eye, and it appears to have been informed heavily by dark money interests. They were not alone in saying this. Here's Laura Ingraham on Fox News, concerned about abortion cases coming up before the court. "We have 6 Republican appointees on this court. After all the money that's been raised, the Federalist Society, all these big fat cat dinners, if this court with 6 justices cannot do the right thing, then I think it's time to circumscribe the jurisdiction of this court. That's the way to change things finally." So we have people who are in a position to know what was going on behind the scenes describing the 6 Republican appointees on the court who got there after all the money that has been raised, the Federalist Society, and all these big fat cat dinners, and threatening that if they don't do what she considers to be the right thing, they'll be punished by circumscribing the jurisdiction of the court. That's pretty big talk, but it's backed up by pretty big dollars. If you go back to before this enterprise got underway, the money that came into the Federalist Society from what's called Donors Trust, which has been described as the dark money ATM of the right, a Koch brothers affiliated operation. Back, say, in 2002, it got $5,000. No big deal. By 2019, when this operation was in full swing, it got $7 million. We don't know who the real donor was because that's the job of Donors Trust, is to de-identify the donor, to launder the identity off the donation so you can't connect the dots any longer. But $7 million, I think, is quite a lot of money. And unfortunately, the Federalist Society was not alone. Right down the hallway is something called the Judicial Crisis Network. Its office is on the same hallway as the Federalist Society in the downtown Washington building, although JCN's website and tax filings list a mailing address at a different location, an address shared by multiple companies. And right down that hallway at that Judicial Crisis Network, there's even more money pouring. And here's how much poured into the last 3 nominations via the Judicial Crisis Network. $21 million related in time to the Gorsuch nomination, $17 million to the Kavanaugh nomination, $14 million to the Barrett nomination. And of course, we don't know who the actual donor is. Could be the same donor, who knows? And because we don't know who the donor is, we don't know what business they might have had before the court. And I think it matters when people are seeking to influence the makeup of the court, that the public understand what business they may have before the court. And anonymity hides all of that. And they didn't stop with the Trump nominees. They got up on the air, a dark money group using dark money to accuse Biden's Supreme Court nominee, at that point a player to be named later. Judge Jackson had not been selected at this point, of being a tool or stooge of liberal activist dark money. This is a screenshot from their advertisement paid for by the Judicial Crisis Network. So it's worth understanding for a moment what the Judicial Crisis Network is and where it lies. And it lies in a network of organizations. The prevailing way that political mischief is accomplished these days is with a paired 501c3 and 501c4 organization. The 501c3 gets the tax deduction, the 501c4 gets to participate in political activity. And sure enough, there's an 85 fund and a Concord fund that are twinned together as a 501c3 and 501c4 organization. And they filed under Virginia corporation law to operate under what they call fictitious names. That's the term of law under which they file, fictitious names. And there's the Judicial Crisis Network, one of the fictitious names of the Concord Fund. It has a parallel judicial education project that is a fictitious name of the 85 Fund. If you're interested in voter suppression, you can move down to the Honest Elections Project Action, another fictitious name, and its 501c3 twin, the Honest Elections Project. And they've even got new ones that are less active, Free to Learn Action and Free to Learn. So these are 8 organizations that are essentially one organization. As lawyers, we think from time to time about piercing the corporate veil. That's corporate veiling that you could pierce with a banana. And it runs back and forth with 3 groups called CRC Advisors, CRC Strategies, and CRC Public Relations that take and send money to these organizations as part of the sort of planning element. You might say that CRC Advisors, CRC Strategies, and CRC Public Relations, this trio, is the command center, and this is the operational torso of the creature. So I show this all because it shows considerable effort when somebody goes to that much trouble to create that many organizations to hide how much money they've spent to control the nomination process to the court. And it's no small amount of money. In the original Washington Post research, they pegged it at $250 million. Further research led to testimony in my court subcommittee that the number was actually $400 million. And we have a recent report that we haven't fact-checked that the number is actually even higher than that. So I may amend this number upward once we're done with our fact-checking. $400 million funding conservative activists' behind-the-scenes campaign to remake the nation's courts. That operation is a very different thing than a group rooting for somebody. And I want to make sure that that difference is clear, since our friends on the Republican side have made dark money such a big focus of their attention already. There is a drastic difference between rooting for somebody and controlling the turnstile that decides who gets on the court, controlling the funding of the political campaigns that pursue the folks on the court. And actually, once you get on the court, we're working now with the judiciary itself to try to clean up the mess of that same anonymous money appearing before the court through phony front groups that file amicus briefs in little flotillas, or if it's an important enough case, in a full armada of dark money funded front groups. So that bears not at all on this nominee, but because this is a very public forum and because we've heard all that so-called hammering of dark money groups, I wanted to make sure that it was clear to everybody how this game is played and what the difference is in the way the two sides play it. So now,